Britt Gully, Brittgully. I guess I'm a Jimmie Rodgers aficionado. Love old music and practicing it. Spreading the word, that's what we're doing.
There you are.
Welcome to Tony's Backstage Pass. This is a behind the scenes of the music industry where Tony strips back the curtain and shows you what really goes on. So tune in and tune up. It's gonna be a wild ride.
Welcome to Tony's Backstage Pass. Before rock and roll, gospel, and country music captured the hearts of millions around the globe, America's music was being formulated right here in Mississippi. It's these origin stories that inspired us to do this show. It's important to document our musical history. So in today's episode, I give you a king, a queen, the father of country music, and a guy named Britt. How did you acquire a theater?
It's a long story, really. I started as an usher, and I moved on to working for ABC, the ABC affiliate, for 21 years in Dallas. Decided to move on, and I had invested in real estate. It kind of gave me freedom to follow my passion, which was always really true theater.
This is the original theater as it stood in 1927. This was the largest stage next to the Roxy in New York City. So this was a big deal back in the day. And everybody who's anybody played here. This is a wonderful old theater. They're not built this way anymore. And I think it's a shame. As part of the Backstage Pass, performing and where you perform and the environment that you perform in as a musician is so important. We get attached to these types of places. They become a part of us, and hopefully we leave a little bit of an imprint when we perform here. All right, let's go. Well, you don't build a theater in 1927 and not have a few people perform here, other than myself, of course. We have Jimmie Rodgers, we have Elvis, the band Journey, Tony Bennett, Bobby Rush, who actually I opened for here at the Temple, George Strait, Alabama, Ronnie Millsap, Willie Nelson, the Oak Ridge Boys, Randy Travis, Roy Clark, and Waylon Jennings, all performed on this stage here. My name will never be associated with those people ever again, other than that list that we all got to play on this one stage. I'm very honored as a performer to be included in that list of very impressive people. Here we are in the dressing room. This is the place where all the artists would have stayed. Funny little story about the time when Elvis performed in this theater. He wasn't the king of rock and roll then, he was a teenager, and he actually entered the Jimmie Rodgers talent contest. Elvis actually came in second. He did not come in first place, if you can believe it, the king of rock and roll. Now, the funny story about the Jimmie Rodgers talent contest, you don't want to win it. You want to come in second. All the famous people have come in second. Elvis came in second, did not win the Jimmie Rodgers talent contest. Faith Hill also did not win the Jimmie Rodgers talent contest. And Haley Williams from the band Paramore, who's also from Meridian, Mississippi, did not win. So you don't want to win the thing if you want a career, I guess. This was the dressing room they gave Elvis. As you can see, they gave him the second dressing room, making him come in second. They gave him dressing room number one. Who knows what would have happened? We may have never had a king of rock and roll. But since they gave him number two, he came in number two, and he's been number one ever since. This is where they all started. This is where they all prepped. This is stardom. This is the music industry. The grit and the dirt. This is what you strive for when you're a musician. These are the environments that music is created, where it just promotes creativity. No matter if it's acting, if it's singing, if it's playing an instrument, whatever you want, it's these places in America that provide the platform for us. I did want to take you down a little bit of history of this theater. Since it was built in 1927, there were separate entrances. Not everybody was equal back then. We have made a lot of progress. I didn't want to not talk about this a little bit because I feel as Americans, we should embrace our history and talk honestly and open about it. So I'm going to show you over to this side of the theater that was for people of color. So here we are, we're in the stairwell. For decades, this is where a lot of minorities would come into the theater. They would come in through the alleyway on the side of the theater, and they would have to come in here. They'd buy their ticket to see whatever they wanted to, have to come up this stairway and go to the balcony. Now, personally, that's the best view up there. But for the reasoning on why they did that was not cool. What's so great about the progress that we made is that this hallway is no longer needed. It can sit in history, we can learn from it. It was a reminder of a time that we never want to go back to. So let's celebrate the things that we do have, and let's hold on to our past, learn from it, move on, and let's live together as one, because we are all the same.
I had an IED go off right under my vehicle, popped the tires, shattered the windshield, and just shrapnel was everywhere. I have this window where I know something's not right. If I go past that window, I can go just completely off the rails. It's like being an actor in your own life. You're watching yourself do these things that you have no control over. You're watching yourself kind of self-implode almost. My heart was just beating like 1,000 miles an hour. Like, am I gonna die? It's like a darkness. It's hard to escape from. I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy.
For more information, please visit www.guitarsforvets.org. That's guitar with an S, the number 4, vets.org.
In Mississippi, there's a lot of weird stuff that happens. I do have to ask you, and I'm sure you get this question a lot.
Okay.
There has been some hauntings, some sightings
Okay.
in the theater. Tell us of some of your experience.
Okay, I've lived in the theater virtually every day for 11 years. The 3 unusual happenings that I had, one is the lady that when I came in, she walked up the stairs, turned around like she was trying to avoid me. That was weird. And then we had what I refer to as the walking man, because it would be like we're talking like this, and the man walks right past like he's on a sidewalk in New York, and there's no place for him to go. The stage door is locked. Then we had another one after the show was long over. I had seen this man come in the building, and I was just staring out into the auditorium, and I saw the guy's reaction. He was startled. He quietly shut that door, and I thought, man, there's somebody in here. And we 5 or 6 cops, a dog. I took the dog in the attic trying to find out. That was the last real big one that we had. It's just an unusual thing. Unless I can really see and touch it, feel it, I'm not interested. But the stuff that's real, it freaks you out, man. I never felt any evil spirit or anything. I thought it was all very normal. And but it's a little bit spooky walking around.
Love this room. This is such a great room to play in. It's very, for a musician to find a great space, it just brings out a lot of creativity. And being here back at the temple, this is one of my favorite spots in the whole building to just sit and play. As you can hear, this room just sounds amazing. One of the things I wanted to talk about real quick while we're here in Meridian, there's a very famous person buried here. She has inspired a lot of people. On my DeLuna record, she came to me, inspired me to write a song. It was dedicated to her. The big part of being a musician is the environment, and it's the inspiration, and she's a wonderful inspiration. The Queen of the Gypsies. Here we are at Rose Hill Cemetery. We are at the Gypsy Queen's grave, the king of the Gypsies as well, the whole Mitchell family. We are here to honor them. I wanted to give you a little history, why she's so important, why people flock from all over the world to Meridian, Mississippi to come and see the Queen of the Gypsies. Kelly Mitchell died in 1915 while giving birth to her 15th child. She was 47 years old. At her funeral, 20,000 Romani showed up for her funeral here in Meridian, Mississippi. At that time, Meridian, Mississippi only had 23,000 people living here. She didn't die here and she didn't live here, but she's buried here. You have to understand, if you come and visit the Queen of the Gypsies, there are rules. Her spirit is very much alive here. So how you approach her and how you conduct yourself while you're here is very important to her. Please come with respect. Please come to honor her. Please bring a gift. She loves gifts. Today I'm going to play a little music. I brought her some orange soda and I brought her some coins. Her spirit is so strong. On her 100th birthday, 2015, they wanted to honor her, and they had this whole parade and they had people coming in a little boisterous. They were not approaching her with, I guess, the amount of respect that she demands and deserves. And as the procession came up, they had a horse and cart just like she would have had on the day she was buried here. They reenacted that as they were pulling up. The street right to my left had a horrendous car accident, literally in sight of where the grave is. The ambulance came, cleaned up the whole mess. Another gentleman who was here at that time tripped over one of the gravestones, cracked his head open, and the ambulance had to come back a second time. Then, third, one of the camera crew, that's why I was saving this, one of the camera crew who was videotaping that particular event broke their leg in a hole walking down the road to leave at the end of the day. So conduct is very important to the Queen of the Gypsies. I'm gonna play a little something and we're gonna have a little bit of fun. We're in this beautiful place in Meridian, Mississippi. The sun's going down, the breeze is nice and cool. So this is a good night to honor the Queen of the Gypsies.
Want more Backstage stories? Become a member of our Patreon page. You'll get access to bonus footage, full performances, swag, and special live events where you can interact with guests. This is your Backstage Pass.
Here we are at the Oak Grove Cemetery in Meridian, Mississippi, the eternal resting place of Jimmie Rodgers. If you listen to any country music whatsoever, this is the guy that started it all. He's known as the singing brakeman.
Sing an old Blue Yodel song for you.
Yes, that's it.
All right.
He's also known as the father of country music. This is the guy that rode the rails and spread country music all along our land. This is ground zero. Jimmie Rodgers, he's the yodeler. This is the guy that wrote T for Texas that Leonard Skinner covered and made such a hit. He also did Waiting on a Train and Blue Yodeler 1 and 2. The man is awesome. He started it all, and it all happened right here in this little town of Meridian, Mississippi. So if you ever come through here, please, you gotta stop by, you gotta visit Jimmie Rodgers, you gotta visit the Gypsy Queen, you gotta go to the Temple Theater, you gotta have lunch or dinner at Weidman's, or at least a drink at Weidman's. What a great little town. If you're a band or you're a musician and you're looking for places to play, please come to Meridian, Mississippi, because these people love live music, they support it, it's in their blood.
Britt Gully, B-R-I-T-T-G-U-L-L-Y. I guess I'm a Jimmie Rodgers aficionado. Love old music and practicing it. Spreading the word, that's what we do.
There you are. Music historian.
Yeah, I'm all kind of historian.
Yeah, you're good. Now, Britt, it's a pleasure to see you. We haven't seen
good
each other
to
in a
see you
while. It's
again,
been a
old
while.
buddy.
Hasn't it? I know, it's been a while. Well, the reason why I wanted to have you here, of course, to talk about the man, the legend, Britt Gully, and the man that you've been playing, so to speak. And I don't really even know how to word it, because the official Jimmie Rodgers Museum and all that, you are kind of the stand-in. You've played Jimmie Rodgers on stage.
Yeah, we put together a one-man show. Gosh, I expect it's been 18 years ago, 17 years ago.
Has it been that long?
And,
okay.
I'd play it. They'd put me on the train. I'd go to the House of Blues and different places like that, and I'd unload, and I'd be Jimmie Rodgers, and I'd get up there and tell his life story and play some songs and say, follow us back to Meridian, Mississippi. That's where it all started.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about Jimmie from the origins a little bit, because we've talked a little bit about what songs he wrote and this and that. We know kind of that, but a little bit about the man himself.
Well, it's no way to overstate how important he was. You know, he took over the world from right here, and he grew up on the railroad. His daddy was a railroad man, and Jimmie took a job as a water boy, and he was traveling around some, and he was hearing the section crew, the black section crew playing folk songs or blues songs or whatever, and he was liking that. And they'd go down on the train through New Orleans, and he'd hear jazz stuff, and I don't think anything was really labeled much yet. It was
back then.
Was just music, and he would hear stuff in church, and the stories that the hobos would tell, and Jimmie just rolled all this stuff together, and it came out like it came out, and he spoke for the people, I think. You know, the Depression, and it was hard times, and everybody was relating to him. And he just sang everybody's song. You know, if you had a job, it paid $1.75 a day if you could find one back then. And that's what a Jimmie Rodgers record cost. And people were spending a day's wages on a Jimmie Rodgers record.
Now, what year would you say this was around?
Late 20s, early 30s.
Late 30s. So Depression.
Yeah, the Depression hit, and it took a toll on everything, and it took a toll on how much money he was making and how much he was playing. But folks were scratching together what they could and buying the Jimmie Rodgers. And in my family, there's stories of that. Yeah, we had Jimmie Rodgers records back then, buddy. That you waited for it, and you got it when it came out, and you listened to it on the Victrola.
Right.
There's no way to state how big a deal or overstate it that Jimmie Rodgers was.
And now his inspiration, his impact today, when people say, well, that was so long ago, why is he relevant today?
American music started here, and it started with Jimmie Rodgers, and he rolled all these influences together, and he's the first one that made 50 cents playing music. You know, all these old blues players, there's some great stuff in that Robert Johnson stuff, which came a little later. wonderful blues stuff, and they were recording it, but it wasn't selling anything. You know, there may be 100 records made of it. Jimmie Rodgers sold 1 million records in 1929 on T for Texas.
Are you kidding?
And times were hard, and people were taking a day's wages and buying Jimmie Rodgers records.
So, like you said, to understate his importance, I mean,
yeah,
you can't. Now, and his influence. He's influenced literally everybody else that came after.
Everybody that gets up there and plays music, you know, Jimmy got up there with a guitar and played his breaks and sang his songs, and he fronted the band like that too. And he threw everything together. If he liked it, it was fair game for his music. He used Hawaiian combos and steel guitar, you know,
before
Hawaiian
anybody.
stuff, yeah, and horn sections and jug bands and everything else. And his next record would be him and his guitar singing something and yodeling. Where did a
from
East
Mississippi.
Central Mississippi boy, and he yodels? But I guess that had to come from some vaudeville show or something.
He probably saw it somewhere.
and heard a Swiss yodeler and could do it. And one of the books, they're quoting him, and he said, well, I just found a new way to spell the blues. And spell, everybody thinks like, you know, writing it out, spelling, but that's not the way folks meant it back then. Spell was a break, you know, you spell it, you rest a spell. And I believe he meant I found a new way to play a break, you know, and he didn't play the break this time, he yodeled it. That's the way the old people, you know.
Yeah, that's how you talk.
Rest a spell kind of thing. You know, if you had a job, it paid $1.75 a day if you could find one back then. That's what a Jimmie Rodgers record cost. And people were spending a day's wages on a Jimmie Rodgers record. And the more you dig into it, it's just so amazing. There wasn't really anything much ahead of him that took over like he did. You had Vernon Dalhart sang anything they put in front of him. And Gene Austin was singing sort of poppy kind of things. But Jimmy took all these influences, and they came together right here in Mississippi. He was exposed to all of it, and he rolled it all together and threw it out there for the folks, and it took off.
Unbelievable.
The wildest thing.
So when we say ground zero,
This is
Mississippi
it,
is the birthplace of American music. We're not kidding. It's not a title we made up or, you know, Mississippi politicians, we're just going to call ourselves this. No, this is it. So for music,
dig it back, it comes back to here.
It all comes back to here. And we're talking about a man who predates Robert Johnson, who people consider, you know, the father of the blues. And this man predated him.
So, and Peter Guralnick says in his book that Robert Johnson and Jimmie Rodgers met at a house party over in the Delta, and Robert was a kid, and he liked it.
Did they prove that? Is that true?
I'm not going to question Peter Guralnick.
I wouldn't either, but that's amazing if they found that out.
And that he walked up to Jimmy, and Jimmy liked him because he was a kid and liked the music and all, and talking to him, and tried to show him a little yodel lick and that kind of thing.
Well, Robert did a little bit of that in a couple of his songs. So
but they were aware of each other.
They had to be.
Howlin' Wolf, you know, he liked Jimmie Rodgers, and that battery acid voice of his. He said he couldn't yodel, but he could howl.
He could.
And country music, you got the Roy Acuff, you got Hank Williams, and that all. Everybody.
The list goes on.
Everybody was under the Jimmie Rodgers influence, and then on up Leonard Skinner. You know, they covered T for Texas. And they called
when
me
they
Breeze.
opened for the Rolling Stones. You got Leonard Skinner playing T for Texas.
And blowing the lid off of it.
They did it a little bit louder and faster. I'm sure
they knew why they were doing it like they were doing it too.
Oh, it was awesome.
Ronnie Van Zant was a music lover and a music historian too. So he knew. In one of the clips I've seen, I don't know if it's the old gray whistle stop, you know, that ain't one of them English shows. And he tells them a song about a fellow from Meridian, Mississippi, Jimmie Rodgers. Kind of.
That's how
he one that started it all. That's how he introduced his song.
That's great. Well, you also mentioned Bob Dylan.
Yeah.
You know, we wouldn't have Bob Dylan if it wasn't for Jimmie Rodgers.
They done an album, a compilation album, put a lot of folks on it. I don't know, Lucinda Williams and a whole bunch of folks. And that was his liner notes on the back of it. He said, the one that started it all, Jimmie Rodgers, said the musical landscape, and I'm paraphrasing, was devoid and nothing. And then Jimmie Rodgers, the one that started it all.
That's
Not going to
cool.
argue with Bob.
Hey, none of us are. So now you've traveled all over the world doing this as Jimmie Rodgers. What has been some of your experiences?
The first one, we've been to England and New Orleans and everywhere you can get to about train from here. We went to England and played at the Maverick Festival a couple of times and some different things in London. And there's a lot of big fans over there. And they go deep on stuff too.
That's what you said.
They'll ask you about songs that we've heard of, but we wouldn't figure they'd heard of. And they want you to do something
Thousands of miles away.
Obscure something. And we had a big time over there, and lots of music fans. But the first trip, one of the funny things ever happened, we put the play together, and we went to New Orleans, this place, and it was a punk rock club. So I'm dressed up with Jim with the bow tie and all this kind of stuff. And
That's pretty punk.
Yeah. I had, turned out it was. But I had all my gear on, and I had that Jimmie Rodgers Martin, and walked in. It's all these folks that didn't look like anybody in Kemper County.
Right.
And I walked in there. I've been playing this music a while. I'm just going to get up here and do my thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the old boy in the band up front, he had, I think it's like 6 earrings in his eyebrow. And he was up there, and they were doing this stuff, 3-piece band. And man, okay, we're going to get down now. We've got this dude's like going to do some Jimmie Rodgers music for y'all now. So they all looking at me anyhow. And I got up there and talked to him, thanked him, and, how about the band and all this stuff.
Right.
And they're all watching me. And first thing I done, I launched into the yodel. The first thing out of my mouth was a yodel. And it sucked everybody into place over there. What on earth is going on right in front of me? And I done my little 45-minute show, and it went over well. And I introduced the band to get them back up. And he said, oh, man, you're not going anywhere. You're going to play some music with us now. So there I am, all jimmied up, playing up there with a punk rock. Punk man doing blues stuff.
Oh, man. I bet they loved it, though.
Yeah, it went fine.
Yeah, that's the
big
thing.
Time with it.
Yeah. So when you say he crosses over everywhere.
And there was an African tribe called the Gypsy, and they have a song, and you can find it on YouTube, and it's great. And they say, oh, Chimiracha, Chimiracha. Somebody, some English soldier, took a Victrola down there in the 30s with some Jimmie Rodgers records and played it for them. And they went crazy over it. And they envisioned Jimmie Rodgers is sort of an antelope-looking thing with a man's head and a cowboy hat on. And they wrote this song about Chimiracha, Chimiracha.
Chimiracha.
And look it up, it's great. It's just go, oh, Chimiracha, Chimiracha. But where he shows up and how did this happen?
Right. And it's still happening.
Yeah, there wasn't any worldwide web and internet back then.
No.
But it got out, and it appealed to a bunch of different people in a bunch of different places. We were playing here in Meridian a couple of weeks ago. There's some folks from Australia in there, and they just wanted to come to Meridian and see where Jimmie Rodgers.
Ground zero.
Yeah.
They got
Ground
to the
zero
Temple
again.
Theater to
That's it.
Meridian, Mississippi. Well, you will play us a little Jimmie Rodgers?
A little something. Well, I love the women, I love them all the same. Lord, yeah, I love the women, I love them all the same. But I don't love nobody well enough to change her name. Well, the women make a fool out of me. And when I'm in the parlor, Lord, the girls think it's a treat. When I'm in the parlor, the girls think it's a treat. Even in the wintertime, they turn off the heat. Well, the women make a fool out of me. Odelay, odelay, odelay. Well, Papa scolded me. Mama sat and cried, Lord, Lord. My Papa scolded me, and my mama sat and cried. Said I had too many women for any little boy my size. Well, the women make a fool out of me. Odelay, odelay, oh, odelay. Sang them blues.
Want more Backstage stories? Become a member of our Patreon page. You'll get access to bonus footage, full performances, swag, and special live events where you can interact with guests. This is your Backstage Pass.